Good morning, everybody, and you know, especially after the joint secretary, I think she actually laid out the whole contours of our discussion. And we're going to drive straight into it in terms of what do we need to do ahead in terms of making MSMEs green. And of course, one key takeaway that we had yesterday from the deliberations was that the need for a green ecosystem. And that is something most of the experts stressed on, given the humongous number, 6 crore of MSMEs, there needs to be we need a green ecosystem which is going to help them out. And it's part of, and the idea of this deliberation is that we should be able to guide them in terms of what is it that MSMEs need to do to help themselves. That is the whole idea. So I'll start with Dr. Ajay Shankar, and of course he's a well-known bureaucrat and of course the distinguished fellow from TEDI. So you have been sort of in the policy making and you've seen all the policies flow out over the years. One common issue which we faced over the years, which has been raised again and again, is the disconnect between policy design and the practical issues faced by enterprises on the ground. How do we, I know we can't solve the problem right now, but since we're talking about going green, are we adding one more layer to that disconnect?
I would suggest that we should try and look at these things and analyze them from the perspective of an MSME. Because it would not be fair to assume that an MSME would like to become green because the world has to be saved from global warming.
Absolutely.
So why should he want to become green? That's the first question. And the second question is that if he wants to become green, what are the enablers that should be there for him to become green? Because again, it is fair to assume that he's overstretched in terms of his management abilities, in terms of his financial resources and human resources to survive and grow in a very tough competitive market. So the first is, why should he want to become green? Now, the world is moving in a stage where unless an MSME is directly selling a product to a consumer in the market, but is part of any supply chain, becoming green is essential for survival over the medium term. Because if you're part of any supply chain, you will at some point hit into the computation of scope 3 emissions as supply chains want to become green and do well in the export market as well as the domestic market. Because even in the domestic market, many large firms would like to claim they're becoming green. And Europe has now introduced the carbon border adjustment mechanism, whereby this certification of how carbon intensive a product is with traceability will become a reality in the coming years. So any MSME which is going to survive and prosper as a part of any supply chain has no option but to think about how to become green and become green soon enough. Because as with GST, you will find difficulties in remaining a part of the supply chain. Now, is there a cost to becoming green? Do I have to spend more? Now, this used to be a feeling many years back that becoming green or having a low carbon footprint is more expensive. That is no longer the case. So if you put up a solar panel on your enterprise, your cost comes down. The system is one which makes it happen. Now, there are one or two thoughts which I would leave for consideration for everybody, that if the industry and the policy persuaded the distribution companies of electricity to supply real-time carbon-free electricity with a separate tariff regime and with time-of-day metering, then many SMEs could become green without putting up their own solar panels. And they would be carbon neutral. And if that happens and there is good time of day metering, then they would be saving a lot of money because their tariffs are around 8 rupees a unit for electricity. If you have only a day shift operation in daylight hours, solar power on a real-time basis metering and pricing should not be more than 4.5 rupees a unit. So you save roughly 3-4 rupees a unit. The other major enabler which should be there and is not there adequately is the emergence of service companies which on a commercial basis with a short payback period help MSMEs undertake energy efficiency investments. Old transformers, old boilers, pumps, etc. can all be replaced. And if government is able to put together a good policy program, then something like the LED program could be repeated, where a cluster with a particular kind of industry spread across the country gets somebody else who will do the investment in energy efficiency, replacing pumps and so on and so forth. And the payback period is good enough so that the MSME does not need to invest capital, and after 3-4 years is getting the benefit of cost savings without investing anything. But that needs a policy leadership as well as the ability to do bulk purchases and push down prices. That was the success of the LET program in the country, where bulk procurement brought down prices to a fourth. So a large program which targets clusters of particular kind, identifies the energy efficiency investments needed, does bulk procurement, does the investment on this ESCO model, then I think the MSMEs of India could be just transformed in 4 or 5 years. And the ESCOs would need working capital, and that will come only if government backs it, because private money will not flow easily for this kind of risky business. But MSME ministry has shown great leadership in providing guarantees for credit flows to MSMEs. So that kind of guarantee for energy efficiency investments would go a long way in transforming MSMEs. My final comment would be that we are at an inflection point. If we are forward-looking enough and are really ambitious, then we could become a green manufacturing hub recognized by the rest of the world. And if that happens, we can look forward to a future where we are a major exporter of green goods and then succeed in the export of manufactured goods, a goal and a target which has been elusive till date. So this is an inflection point where India could suddenly leapfrog and become a major exporter of green goods. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shankar. Coming to you, Prashant, in terms of, you are a person who's seen it from the ground as an entrepreneur yourself and as leading a chamber. What are the sort of issues faced by MSMEs on the ground? You would have sort of discussed or studied the issues faced on the ground when your own members would like to go on the green path. Any takeaways from that?
Thank you. I think I'll take from where Ajay Shankar sir mentioned some of these points, right? I think the first point is very, very critical. Telling MSMEs, so I come from Pune and we talked to about 3,000 MSMEs. Telling MSMEs that you should do this because it's a global good, right? You would get some claps, you'll get some nods, you do not get action. Yeah. Now, telling MSMEs that you should do this because there is an incentive for you to do, there is a chance. Examples, lean manufacturing cluster, all of these are MSME schemes. ZED scheme, now Spice and Gift. Each one of them giving some incentive to the MSME to do what we expect them to do. So the behavior change as a function of incentive works a lot better rather than if you just want claps and nodding, right? That's the first part, first observation. Why do they do that? I think it's natural that the amount of time and energy they need to spend on one, the difficulty of doing business, I won't say ease of doing business, or compliance burden.
Yeah.
And the second part, the amount of time taken to raise formal, affordable finance. You're so caught up in it that I don't have time, even if I'm a do-good or otherwise, I don't have time to do this. So how do we break this silo, right? How do we break this framework? I think the incentive frameworks that I mentioned about the lean, ZED, the gift and spice would work to whatever extent they're working, because there is incentive in terms of either interest subvention, there is a credit guarantee incentive. Let's look at some examples from ground. We worked on some of these schemes, and we realized that here is one individual who has 30 crore company and says, hey, thank you so much that you put us through these schemes. Okay, all right. And how's that? One large American conglomerate that we're supplying to, we're only bidding. They took it from us only because we had these certifications that we had done with. Now we get this individual to tell his story to a bunch of others. And suddenly, within few months, we get another dozen who are able to tell some of the similar story. Right? So storytelling by somebody who benefited from it helps a lot more rather than me going in the suit and jacket and trying to communicate one story in English. Whatever he would have communicated in the local language has worked fantastically.
Absolutely.
One more quick thing, and then I'll hand it over. We tried to launch a set of clusters, and we said we'll do green cluster. Here is what we tried to do on ground. We said we would want to be the first state or first city that would have 100 MSMEs who are sustainable. तो कैसे करें? तो हमने सोचा कि to do each one of those, it was costing us some 30-50,000 rupees. So first 10, 80% discount. We would fund it as a chamber.
Okay.
Next 10, 70% discount. And then we'll get to the, so it worked till there was some discount. The moment it was at par, it stopped. That's the on-ground experience for you. So we have already 30 of them who benefited from it.
Yeah.
And it just stopped. And I said, look, I can't do this forever. I'll have to wait. So what would happen apart from the positive incentives? Suddenly tomorrow when the SEBAM, or I'm not saying it should come, because as India, like, we got to do what we got to do in terms of opposing it and telling them it's a cost to us and all. But when one of those compliances comes, either they'll find a way roundabout or they'll have to do it. That's the unfortunate truth of it. I think I should stop there. There'll be another opportunity to contribute.
Sure.
Thank you.
Radhivji, let me bring you in here. Would you agree that incentivizing is the only way to go in terms of if you want to MSMEs go down the green path?
Good morning, good afternoon. And in fact, friends, I am a hardcore entrepreneur. This is my 42nd year now in business. And so whatever I speak, of course, from my core experience. And then naturally, what I have gained from thousands of entrepreneurs who are associated with IamSME of India. There are only two ways of, making it happen. A, which is more sustainable, long-driven, an entrepreneur should see profits, sustainability, sustaining profits there.
Absolutely.
And opportunities that come with it. B, there should be some compliance, some sword hanging over an entrepreneur, be it in the form of some government norms or nowadays the customer norms. Mm-hmm. I'll take the second thing first. I'm in the supply chain of automobile companies like, if I name a few, Maruti, Hero, Bajaj, Mahindras, Tatas, many others. One of the first things that I need to have before they even register me as a probable vendor in a supply chain, and I'm talking about tier 2, tier 3, mm-hmm. I must have all the A, government compliances, factory license, fire NOC, CTO from Pollution Control Board, etc., etc. And second, because now they have to file ESG reports and other things, they want a lot of data collection from their supply chain.
Absolutely.
And they come to us and how much diesel I was using 3 years back, have I shifted to gas as of now, etc., etc. So customers today are very vigilant, and especially the corporate customers, and their supply chains are increasingly becoming greener. That is happening. Part B of the same thing is, suddenly on 1st of July 22, there was a ban on single-use plastic. If you remember many years back, more than a decade back, diesel auto rickshaws and cabs were banned in Delhi, diesel buses were banned. So even an auto rickshaw driver had to shift to CNG. Then there was a ban on crackers, now single-use plastics. Couple of years back, 3 years back, NGT banned fossil fuels in industries in and around Delhi. The old diesel gensets usage is banned, etc. So many of these things are also coming, and therefore either it is the regulation that one needs to do, and B, opportunities and profit that one sees. And then, of course, it's about the ROIs. Increasingly, I find that, like, for example, the solar panels, etc., the ROI is becoming closer, cheaper. Likewise, there have been many incentive-driven programs. In Haryana, I mean, I come from Haryana, I have units in Gurgaon and Faridabad. The state government is playing a major role.
Okay.
So if one goes for energy audit, for example, and invests in machinery to save energy, and then they monitor it for next 6 months, looking at the turnover versus energy consumption ratios, and the government of Haryana subsidizes up to 20% of the investment cost. So while there are schemes from the central government like GIFT and SPICE, the state governments are also playing a major role. And another very interesting thing, and I speak again for Haryana, is that they have linked all their incentives. And there are many incentives that the state government offers to MSMEs. They have linked all incentives to Z certification.
Okay.
So, for example, in the center, while it is mandatory to have Udyam registration to benefit for, again, for any of the schemes, the state government in Haryana has not only Udyam registration, but also Z certification linked to this. So increasingly, I find that, incentives, of course, work, but then beyond that, it is some opportunity, some profitability that an entrepreneur should see. And then, of course, the government regulations and things. And more than the government, sometimes at the inspector level, things can be handled. But honestly, I tell you, much more inspection is done today by my OEM buyer than by any labor inspector. In fact, just to share, we have a plant at Gujarat, and we normally comply with everything. And in one of the customer audits, they said that I should be giving wage increase to this set of people because in my chart, in my skill matrix, I say I have trained them. So now they are skilled. So when I tell my customer that out of my, let us say, 100 people, I have skilled everyone. And then they say, why are you paying unskilled wages to many of those? And so I say, because that is as per the government norm. They are only temporary or, 6 months old and all. But they say, to us, you say they are skilled and you pay them unskilled, we'll not allow. So my point is, today, the customers are making it happen. So it's all about the ecosystem. That is why I say, when it is the ecosystem, it is the union government, the state government, the regulations, the business opportunities that come our way, the customers, making it happen. And then, of course, agencies like TERI or AEEE, who are bringing in bulk buying, motor changing, give the old motor, replace the old motor with the new one. So I think all of this is, ensuring that things happen. And let me tell you, we are underrated. Often people think that, we are the last in the ones to do. But the fact is that all MSMEs, we have all, borne the brunt, from a cracker, small cracker seller selling crackers by the side of a road to an auto rickshaw driver changing from diesel to CNG. I think every entrepreneur at the MSME level is contributing, and let's recognize that.
Absolutely. Interestingly, like where you put it, like how the customer is making you sort of making this happen. Interestingly, if we see, if we work on would you agree to the fact that, the existing schemes that are running in central and state governments, and this is a question to all three of you, do you think the existing schemes need to be upgraded or be improved upon if you're going down the green path, or do you think or do you need a new set of schemes and programs? We can start with you.
Well, in terms of ease of doing business, if I mention, the government of India has already decriminalized about 24,000 laws. A lot of work has been done, and let's give it to them. The union government is on it and regularly doing. I also believe, and I note that the Ministry of MSME is now talking to the company, the MCA, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, that why the definition of in company law for the small and others is different than the MSME, and why it should not be in sync, etc. Third very important thing, and this is where the state's role comes.
Sure.
There are almost, and again I'll give you the Haryana example, but multiplied by the number of states you have, and then you get the figures. There are almost 1 lakh manufacturing MSMEs running without a factory license in Haryana. The reason is that these are located, which we call in non-conforming areas, so where they do not have the CLU. Someone setting up a small workshop, on a 100 square yard plot, 200 square yard, because government cannot give as many plots as the world requires. So they come up like slums often. Now just look at it. Because they don't have CLU, they will never get CTO, which is from the Pollution Control Board. They will never get factory license, and they will never get fire NOC. So many banks like SIDBI and others will never give them formal credit. And also, many of them will never be able to be part of the supply chain in the government, supplying to railways or defense, because again, these compliances are required. So we've recommended to the state of Haryana that, sometimes you've been regularizing jhuggi jhopadis also. So why not give it a fresh look? Factories Act was made in 1948. At that time, there was no Z certification. Now you have Z certification. Just because someone's land does not have CLU, you don't give him CTO, which has got nothing to do with pollution. So point is, can we have more or better use of Z so that Z could probably replace CLU as a document requirement, and 1 lakh such manufacturing enterprises in Haryana become legitimized, they get access to government credit, bank funds. Needless to say, they'll all comply with every other thing that is coming away. So I believe that state governments should now take the initiative, because many of these laws are state-driven.
Prashant, we're just running short of time, but any one recommendation that you'd like to give in terms of, as Rajiv mentioned, is there any one recommendation that you have?
I think I'll make it quick. First of all, I think the schemes that you have from the MSME ministry, they're good schemes.
Yeah.
It's just that they need to reach out far and wide. Recommendation, make use of the industry association, not just us, everywhere in the country.
Okay.
So that they become your extended hand in creating the awareness and making implementation, like Germany does it very, very effectively. That's all.
Mr. Shankar, what's your recommendation?
I have a principle which I enunciate with which to test and evaluate.
Sure.
Which is, does the scheme have a critical mass to have a transformative impact in 4 or 5 years? If not, revisit it. Club schemes have fewer schemes, but any scheme must give a measurable outcome in 4 or 5 years, which is transformative in nature. So I would go on the drawing board and evaluate every scheme by this yardstick. Much better have only 1 or 2 schemes, but see a transformative impact in 5 years. But we have a history and a tradition of lots of schemes. We don't wind them up. Any new government comes or new officer comes, he wants to be creative. One more scheme, one more scheme. So that's the big change that is required. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. I think we have captured the mood on the ground and what is needed. And I'm pretty sure the voices will reach the right places. Thank you once again for your time.